Hello, guys. Welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. So tonight we are reviewing Fight Camp Week 3. It was a very interesting night, wasn't it, Ben?
It was. It was a good night. I think a nice way to round it off.
Yeah, definitely. So, let's get straight into it. Zelfa Barrett first. First up, fourth round finish. What did you think?
I thought he did the job on him. Tend to say that a lot, but he went out. He always thought he was favourite. I don't think he ever looked like losing. And I do think for me, just it's one of those fights where he dominated. He got the result I think most people expected. So it's just a case of I think it's looking for who he's got next, which to me is Joe Cordina. The fact he's ranked higher I think it's the IBF, than Joe Cordina surprises me. So I just think it's a good way to go. You like a homegrown battle, same both with Eddie Hearn, and I think that'd be a good way to go and look forward to that, hopefully.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't think we'll get that. I think, when you looked at the post-fights of Joe Cordina's interview, I think it's quite clear that, they're going to keep him busy and it'll be a world title shot before long. I think he'll keep them apart and try and do more with both of them. And it's always a bigger fight down the line, isn't it, when you've got potential world titles involved. But no, I thought it was a good win for Zelfa Barrett. Like, as you said, I think really there isn't too much to say on it. He boxed quite well. He did what he needed to do, and he got the job done, and it's sort of on to the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think back, though, I think IBF, I think that could make it the Eliminator. I think Eddie Hearn's hand could be tied for it because it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it does, but I just think Eddie Hearn, if it was Frank Warren, I could see it more.
Yeah.
But, Eddie Hearn, he sort of keeps his fights apart, doesn't he? And in fairness to him, he's got a brilliant knack of putting them in at the right time together. So we'll move on. Next up, on the sort of prelims, if you like, we had Ray Ford and Ricards Bolotniks. Now, this was one I was quite excited about, wasn't it? I thought this was, your standard sort of old bull, potentially at a crossroads in his career in Ricards Bolotniks versus now the young prospect up and coming who, in fairness, coming off a draw last time out. There's sort of well-documented excuses for why he got the draw. But, I enjoyed this fight, Ben. I'll talk about it if you don't mind. I've heard enough.
Take the lead.
So, no, in fairness to Ricards Bolotniks, the first couple of rounds, he came out, he boxed quite well. And I think, he was definitely, as we expected, really, with Ricards Bolotniks, he was sort of forcing the pressure and he was really taking the fight to Ray Ford, which it's what we expected. And I did start to think, you never know, maybe there's life in Ricards Bolotniks yet. And then in fairness, I've got to be honest, Ray Ford came out with the third and he just produced a great, it's a referee stoppage, but it was a great stoppage. He caught Ricards Bolotniks with a good right hand and it sort of just knocked the wind out of Ricards Bolotniks' sails in one foul shot, to be honest. And it was a great flurry of punches to get the finish. You could, he saw Bolotniks' legs had stiffened and he went in for the kill, which is, it's brilliant. It's what we want to see. And, that's what we watch boxing for, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think that's that bit of a killer instinct to end a fight is something you always want to see. But I think Raymond Ford, he just coming over. I think when anyone goes to another country, unless it's the payday fight, you've got to fancy your chances. And I do think he came over here and he wasn't the challenger in this. Bolotniks wasn't. He came over here and he must have fancied, he must have saw something. And he took control. Like you said, though, Bolotniks, he looked good in the first 2 rounds. And I thought, is he going to win this? And he got some good body shots in. And I thought, this could be a good fight. And then the third just changed. And it was just a game changer, the third. And I think
he really kicked it up a gear. And I think he's shown there's obviously a lot more to come, as you'd expect. But I think he could have a big future.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just think the shame for me is, like that fight just with Zelfa Barrett, you finish the fight and you think to yourself, right, what's next for him? But even though I want to know what's next for Raymond Ford, I'm kind of find myself thinking, is there anything left for Bolotniks? It's a shame when that's where your mind goes, because that is where my mind goes. I'm not thinking who's Ford's going for next. I'm thinking, will we see Bolotniks again?
No, you're right. I think that's, it's late, obviously, when we're doing this. I think that stands his record at 14-5 now. Most of his losses have sort of been in his last sort of 5 or 6 fights, which is...
If I remember correctly, he's lost 5 in the last 7.
Exactly.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, I hope it's not the end for Ricards Bolotniks, because I think if nothing else, it depends on his motivation. But I think he's a really good test of young prospects, and he forces him into corner and probably
Gatekeeper.
he probably gives them something that they've not experienced yet, which is always valuable to a prospect. But in fairness to Belotti himself, it depends on your motivation to stay in the sport, because you're potentially in a shit punishment and the money might not be there for him. So, but if not, he's had a good career enough, hasn't he? I mean, it's obviously not what he would have wanted out of it, but I think he's entertained, and I'll remember him certainly.
Yeah, I think you've summed up it perfectly. But he just seems like somebody who likes to fight for me. So even though I sometimes watch him, don't think his head's in it, I can't see him just leaving the sport yet. I still think he's going to try and make a comeback.
No, fair play. I mean, if he does, brilliant. We'll see, won't we? I think that's sort of where we can leave it. It's always hard after a defeat, isn't it?
Of course, yeah.
I mean, then we got into the main show, and we started off with Cash Farouk versus Castillo. Now, I was quite excited about this fight. I thought it could be a potential show stealer. It was always going to be sort of one for the purists, but Ben, talk me through it.
I think I agree. I was looking forward to it, but it went the way you expected it to go. But I wasn't excited when it was on. I was just watching it, and it's one of those ones where you're just watching it, but you're not in it. And I just didn't find myself really getting involved in that fight, and I don't know what it was about it. I wasn't that interested. I think the padded record that the opponent had as well. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, what do you make of it?
No, I thought Cash Fruit boxed well. I thought he did again. He did exactly what he had to do, didn't he? So I mean, in fairness to Castillo, I thought he looked quite game. He was tougher to break down at times, which it got Cash Fruit thinking. But I'm going to be honest, for me, it's all about probably what's next for Cash Farouk. I want to see the Lee McGregor rematch. I know the British board ordered it on Thursday or Friday this week. I don't think it'll be for the British title. I know Eddie Hearn sort of alluded to that fact that there's potential, European world titles at stake in that fight. It's a massive fight for Scottish boxing. They want to see it. I think, in fairness, both fighters have sort of said, yeah, no, I'm up for it. So I've just got my fingers crossed that that's next.
Yeah, I think the thing is like you just said, you're more bothered on what's next. I think a lot of this card tonight was more of a what's next. I can't say it was a fight which I thought this is the fight. I think it's all what's next. I wanted all the fights to kind of end because I think every single fighter who won are going on to bigger things in the next fight, which excites me more than what I think this card did. Might sound like I'm being a bit harsh, but
no, not at all. I think we've definitely covered it a little bit on this channel. That's been a little bit of a theme throughout Fight Camp. Certainly with Eddie Hearnstale, I think he's got a few top end stars. With your Whites, your Joshuas, and then I think he's in probably the upper building phase of a fair few. He's got a Coley now who's a world champion.
Yeah,
and he could probably sell out the O2 on his own. And then you've got the likes of a Buatsi, a Cordina, a Conor Bent. They're on the fringes of it, aren't they? And they're on the cusp of doing something really special within the sport. But they all need that one or two more good fights. And I think that's what we're seeing quite a bit of in Fight Camp. That might sound a little bit harsh. I don't know, but that's certainly what I feel. But they've come through it, haven't they? And in fairness, we'll get on to Cordina and Buatsi, obviously. And obviously, we'll see what Conor Benn's got on September the 4th with his rearranged fight. But I think it's been a successful Fight Camp in that sense that they have got in, they have built, and there's been progress made.
I think it was necessary.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, that leads us on nicely, talking about building people. Hopey Price and Claudio Grande. Now, we both mentioned in our preview that, this was a bit of a step up for Price. Grande coming in at 5-0. 3 knockouts. Now, okay, not questionable opposition, but he did what we said he would, didn't he? He came and he showed ambition. He tried to force the pace. He was throwing his hands. I mean, unfortunately, I think you'd have to say his footwork did let him down at times, and his hands were faster than his feet. I just think he came in on straight lines, which made Hopey Price's job really easy, isn't it? He did great work off the jab. And, simple combinations were connecting. But, not taking anything away from Hopey Price, I was really impressed with him tonight. I thought that's probably the best we've seen of him, certainly as a professional. He finished it, didn't he? Grande probably saved by the bell in the sixth with a good knockdown, which, I mean, he's 5-0 now, but only the one stoppage. So he might consider himself unlucky to have not got the stoppage because he looked likely for it a couple of times, didn't he?
Yeah, he looks hungry for it. And it's just funny you say, like, this was the step up. But I still think it's crazy that in 3 weeks' time, he's got his biggest step up. It's like not even a month out of the ring, and he's going to be back in. I think that says a lot, and I think it just shows the confidence he's fighting with. He hasn't overlooked his opponent. I think his performance proved he didn't overlook him. He came in, he put a show on. It's the best he's looked. He knocked him down, like you said. If it was more than 6 rounds or he had an extra minute, he could have stopped that.
I think an extra 20 seconds, to be honest, because when Grande got up, he didn't look. I think it really was. I think Darren Barker said it really was saved by the bell.
100%.
I get what you're saying with the 3 weeks thing, but although Grande came in with ambition, Price didn't look like he'd been in a fight at the end of it, to be fair. He boxed really well tonight. And I think it's good for him. He's still a young man, and he's a young pro. He needs those rounds. Those are 6 valuable rounds tonight. And I'll be honest, we've watched all of his fights. We've watched them together, in fairness. And I think, he would have learnt more tonight than he probably has in, his first 4 pro fights. So I think it's really valuable lessons for him because it is a step up, isn't it? It's stepping in, heading on September the 4th.
I think he showed maturity, though. I think that's the main thing. He picked his shots and his timings were right.
Yeah, he's going to do that, though. I think big shout out to Dave Caldwell as well because he harnessed Tony Bellew's aggression, didn't he? And he's shown he really does keep a fighter calm, and shot selection. It's what he does. He's a brilliant trainer. I think he's doing a great job with Hopey Price. So next we have Michael McKinson versus the man whose first name shall not be pronounced, Brunovsky. So you struggled the other night with it. I'm not brave enough to have a bash at it either, mate.
I don't think he has a first name.
We'll just take it off him. It doesn't matter anyway. To be honest, with his performance tonight, he doesn't deserve it. So it's gone. So come on then, Ben. Give me a breakdown on this because there's more and more noise being made about Michael McKinson. And on one hand, I want to get excited about him because he does certain things very well. But there are certain things I think that are lacking from his game. So go on, talk me through it.
Well, I think it's right what you said. I think he did run hot and cold in this fight. But then I think at times he was really looking for that knockout. I think my opinion is sometimes he's a great boxer. And like I've said before, the knockdowns he's been getting in his previous fights prove that he knows how to knock someone down, but it's the keeping them down he struggles with. And I think he's getting his own head with it because a lot of the time I felt he's really looking for that knockout where he could have just took the step back and assessed. I think he wants the knockout because his knockout record isn't great, but it doesn't matter. His winning record's good. And that's the main thing, that you get the win. I just think he's still going the right direction. He's still finding his feet. If I'm right in thinking he's not long been with Matchroom.
No, yeah. It started with the whole winner stays on thing, didn't it? That Eddie Hearn was running, which we're big fans of on the channel. So,
well, yeah, and it's like I think when he made the switch, people have been saying he hasn't looked as good, but I do think his opponents have been better than what he's faced. So I think I think today proved that it wasn't his best performance, but I think it proved that he's finding his feet and he's moving in that right direction. And for me, I'd love to see him in with Josh Kelly.
Yeah, no, I think we mentioned that, didn't we? In the not in the preview, sorry, on a different channel that we guested on the other night. There's question marks obviously around Kelly making the way, but no, I agree. I think that's the fight, and again, potentially a bit of a make or break fight for both, isn't it? McKinson can show he's the real deal, but in fairness, if Josh Kelly was to lose, it's sort of where then, after obviously the Avanesian loss, and should he lose that as well, which would be a shame so early in his career. But I mean, with McKinson, he started well. I thought, he boxed very well. As you say, he's a good boxer. He's shown that. He's technically very good. But I don't know. I thought through the first 3 or 4 rounds, I wanted him to almost go up the gears a bit more. He boxed himself into openings, and I felt like there was more in the exchanges. He could have done a little bit more and forced the issue a touch. It's tough, isn't it? I mean, as you said, it was a comfortable win, so it's hard to sort of criticise him. And, we're certainly not going to do that. But I do think as he moves through the levels, and, he's ranked well now with the WBO, in terms of, I mean, I think DAZN showed a graphic, didn't they? And they've got him sort of pegged as the third best British welterweight.
Yes.
It's tough. I think, you know, if he was to get in the likes of with a Conor Benn, I think Conor Benn would blow him away, if I'm being sort of brutally honest. I think the power is what's going to hold him back, because although you can box to a decision and he is a good boxer, I think he's a good boxer at this level, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to be proven wrong. He may be able to carry that, adapt, and keep improving. But I don't know. I just think he might be the sort of fighter that we see, you know, he's sort of British European level. I don't know if he's got what it quite takes to go on to that world stage.
I have to agree with you there, but I need to go off subject a little bit as well. And you're going about him being third, Ben being second. Do you agree with Brook being first on that? Because when was his last fight to say he's first?
Ben, I don't know why you're doing this to me. You know,
I know you're a Brook fan, but come on. To be first in anything, you need to be active.
To me, Kell Brook, the bigger issue for me is Kell Brook's not actually a welterweight. You know, he was welterweight. Was it May 2017? He lost his belt to Spence. And, you know, he sort of said it himself afterwards, it took too much out of him to get to welterweight. He then obviously had a couple of runs out at 154 pounds, and he looked like a different beast. Like, you know, I thought he could be an absolute force here, but again, the activity slowed. Depending on who you listen to, different reasons for that. And then obviously he balled himself down to welterweight again last November, December, didn't he, for Terence Crawford? And got, yeah, he got blown away. I mean, he won the first couple of rounds, I thought, but, you know, obviously Crawford's class shone through. So I don't think you could class him as our best welterweight. But I don't know who you would as well at the same time, because, I mean, again, we're huge fans of Conor Benn, and I'm excited to see him back on September the 4th. But again, it's still probably too early. At welterweight, we've not really had those domestic clashes to say who's the best, have we? You've got the old guard of Brook and Khan really at the end of their career. Lots of talk about they're going to finally get it on, which feels like we're back in 2015 for me. But yeah, if we do get to see it, great. It's one of those things we would still watch it. But then, you know, there was talk of Conor Benn and Josh Kelly for a couple of years, wasn't there? And I think that's completely 180, because a lot of people were saying, oh, Ben's not ready for Josh Kelly and Kelly would blow him away. And it's completely the opposite now, isn't it? I think after the Avanesian loss, poor Josh Kelly, I think now he'd have to consider himself very lucky to get a Conor Benn fight. And there is obviously a lot of talk around he can't do 147. So again, maybe we'll see him move up. But I'm glad you put me on the spot. And
I like to mix it up.
Yeah, you're a prick, mate. So next, we move on to the Chief support, and it was another addition to the card this week with the changes, wasn't it? Joe Cordina, the Joshuah Hernandez, and wow, I think is all you can say. I mean, you know, Cordina, not with the biggest punching reputation at all. A spell of inactivity. You know, he's had a lot going on with COVID, the hand injuries. And let's be honest, now that right hand's fixed, he was sharp. He caught Hernandez with it a few times tonight, and then produced an absolutely devastating knockout on 58 seconds, didn't he? It was something special.
Yeah, well, I think came out and I think he caught him 3 times, clean, his timing was right, and he's like, you thought he's really up for this. He just looks really hungry for it, Cordina, and then next thing you know, he's won the fight. It was just like people question his knockout ability, his power. Let's put it this way, if he ever brings that if he can keep at those standards, he's going to look good. Like, I know, the a glove wasn't laid on him, but I think the confidence he's going to get from that now is going to help him a hell of a lot.
Oh, definitely. I think the biggest strength Joe Cordina's sort of had going for his career, I mean, he's a seasoned amateur. We all know that. But the biggest thing he's had going for him, for me, is that he's such a slick boxer. He makes his opponent miss, and it looks so easy. So, you know, I've never been too worried about him defensively. But it's always been on the attack, hasn't it? Like you say, he's not got the biggest reputation as being a puncher. But in his defence, you know, it's been quite well documented about the hand injuries he's had. He's gone for the hand surgery, suffered the spell of inactivity. Now at 29, entering his peak years, and he looked sharp tonight. If you're super featherweight tonight, you're thinking, oh shit, if you've got a belt, you've got to be, because I know you can say what you want about Hernandez, but you know, he's shown he's tough previously. I'm a massive fan of Joe Cordina. Anyone who follows us on social media will know that I have been this week. I've been banging on about it. But we've got to get excited about the Welsh Wizard. I really feel like he's probably Britain's next world champion. That's where I am with him.
Well, I can't disagree. I think I'm not going to say he's next world champion, but I do think he will be a world champion. I just think that the one shot power he's shown in that, it was brilliant. I just think it's always, I find it's a tough one when someone wins in the first round because like people go, oh yeah, but he didn't get into the fight. You can't really judge him on that. No, but he went and did his job. If you could win the first round every time, you would. People go, want the rounds. Yeah, you want the rounds, but ideally you want to stop him in the first. Put on the show, make people take note. And that's exactly what he's done tonight.
Yeah, no, I think he's shown us previously he can go the rounds, do the boxing. And, no one can argue his boxing ability. So I'm more buzzing that we got to see what we saw tonight. He may feel like he possibly wanted some rounds with the inactivity that he's gone, but the confidence, as you've rightly pointed out, that he'll have taken from tonight, it'll do him, no end of good, will it?
No, well, exactly. And I think he's named the forefront of people's minds now, and by doing it in the style and the time he did, he's fit enough to still fight another 2 times this year. So he might not have got the rounds now, but he's going to get the rounds this year because you're going to see him again soon, straight away.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll probably, there's a lot of talk about a Dylan White card, potentially October the 30th. Will we see him on that undercard? He'd be a good chief support, wouldn't he, for that?
Definitely, yeah.
No, so yeah, brilliant from Cordina. I'm really excited. I don't think Ben quite is, but don't worry, guys. I'll get him hyped up for the next one.
Don't get too ahead of myself. You got to see, haven't you?
No, let's get excited, mate. Let's get excited. So then we've got main event time. Josh Buatsi, Ricards Bolotniks. A lot of talk about this. I was excited about it. I thought it was a bit of an acid test, so as it was rightly billed by Eddie Hearn. Number 2 versus number 3 in the WBA rankings. I know Bolotniks was coming in at 18 for 5, but I think a lot of his losses, in fairness, were when he's fighting up at cruiserweight. Clearly, he's not a cruiserweight. So I thought it was a great learning fight for him. What did you think?
Right, so you talk about not getting excited for Cordina. This is who I get excited for. Joshua Buatsi.
Here, Ben.
That's, well, like you look, a lot of people go, I don't see it as a step up. Some people say it's not a step up, Bolotniks. But at the end of the day, you've got to fight the people who's ranked around you. Prove that he's second, he's better than third by a country mile. And he just proved that tonight. And he came out and he boxed a good fight in that 6th round when he knocked him down. He did punch himself out. And the next 2 rounds, he just seemed like he was, at the time, I was thinking, what's he doing? He kind of took himself out of the fight for 2 rounds and I thought it's dangerous, but he just proved he knew what he was doing. And then he turned it back on towards the end in the championship rounds. It was a great knockout and it was a stellar performance. I was really impressed by it. I'm just excited. He can go all the way to the top if he can. I think even now, I will say, I think he should have another fight maybe before stepping up for a title. But if you put him in a world title shot next week, he wouldn't be a walkover. He would go in there and he would cause troubles and he could still win.
No, I think, I mean, you say could still. I'd back him against the likes of a Bivol, to be honest.
Why is that?
I just think he'd have too much for him. Craig Richards caused Dimitri Bivol problems at times, and Buatsi's levels above Craig Richards. So I think that would be the way to go, obviously, particularly with it being WBA ranked. Eddie Hearn promotes both. That fight can be made. I mean, Eddie Hearn did say in the post-fights that they'd like to get him out potentially November, December, possibly stateside on a card over there. So, whether we end up seeing him on a Canelo undercard, that'd be a great experience for him. And then it will be straight into a world title fight if it's Bivol, and the O2 is even mentioned. I'm hungry to see world championship boxing back at the O2 and in Britain, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a while, hasn't it? And now the crowds are back. That's what you want to see. It's like, for me, the boxing that's coming, it's huge. Like, you've got the Warrington, you've got the AJ, and it's just like, you can put Buatsi's name in there when he has fights now. I think the bigger the better. And like, O2 is perfect for him.
No, I agree. I mean, strictly on tonight, I think you hit the nail on the head. He'll have learned from tonight. He said it himself at the end of the 6th. He was sat in the corner thinking, who told me to empty my tank? but he did the right thing, and I think that shows maturity, because although he took some shots in the 7th and 8th, it allowed him to recoup and then eventually force the stoppage. And again, talking of good stoppages, that it was beautiful, wasn't it? The overhand right, such a simple shot, but bang, goodbye. And I do just want to give a little shout out to Bolotniks, because I don't know what he was using for a chin tonight, but my God, did he take some punishment, didn't he? It was like he took a lot of clean shots flush on the chin.
Well, in that, I think it was the first to third, he didn't have a bad game plan. I think he trusted his chin, and he was letting Buatsi unload a few shots. And as Buatsi took the step forward, he was just overhand right every time, and he was catching him a lot. And that was the game plan. It's not a great game plan because it's not going to last 12 rounds, but it seemed like it's working.
I think he knew, didn't it? He sort of said during fight week that he's probably not going to be able to outbox Joshua Buatsi, but he's got the heart of a lion, and he kept saying, didn't he, I want a street fight. And I think that's what he tried to do. And to be fair, it was where he had his success. So I think, probably the best sort of game plan that he could have implemented, if that makes sense. But Buatsi just showed, I mean, we saw a little bit of against Kalic, didn't we, last year, that what's he like when he's dragged into deep waters. And not that he was ever sort of on the back foot shipping punishment tonight, but he'll have learned a lot about himself tonight, I think. Coming back from an empty tank and forcing the stoppage, it shows character, doesn't it? It shows maturity.
The one thing I like about him is he doesn't show arrogance, and he's always willing to learn. And he's like, in the corner, you heard his trainer say to him, use the uppercut. You've got it. What does he do that next round? He uses the uppercut and he knocks him down. And it's like, he listens and he's willing to learn. And he's just like, I think that's the main thing. He's learning all the time, and he'll hold his hands up to that. He's a kind of bloke to win a world title, but yet he's still openly learning it. I think that's what you want, because there's always room for improvement.
No, definitely. I'd agree. I think, we could have seen two big performances from the next two of British boxing stars in Joe Cordina and Joshua Buatsi. So brilliant. And I know we have got plans on Tuesday evening to do a sort of general fight camp roundup. We'll have some guests on for that. So I think we'll wrap it up there, Ben. I just want to say, guys, thanks for all the support. Our views are starting to grow, getting more support on this channel. We do appreciate it. Please let us know what you think in the comments section. Follow us on all of our social medias, because we have a lot of content coming out every day on all of that. So yeah, thanks, guys.
Cheers. Don't forget to like and subscribe.